Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as the forces of winnable ex-outcasts defend the financial capital of Windsward from pipeline aggressions. And in Everfall, the champs complete their 8th straight defense of the fort, retaining their championship title belt. There was little time for chit-chat as hooded ex-outcasts prepared for their second fight, but we did get a brief word after their victory in Everfall.
Green showed up big time. Sporter showed up big time. I did nothing again, but we had some good work out there. The attack was pretty intense. Enjoyed seeing all the blunderbuss action out there. That was pretty nice.
While in Everfall, KOTT news crews were also able to catch up with the challenger, who seemed upbeat despite the loss.
Spice Lords have a couple plans. We have a few things up our sleeves. We're going to maintain the flow of spice throughout all the lands. We might not own a land, but we do own the spice. Just remember that. Thank you for Salted and everyone else for having us out. We appreciate it, and it's only begun. Let's go. If you're green or purple, watch your ass. We're coming.
Later in Windsward, we spoke directly with the governor about the proposed pipeline project.
There's never going to be a pipeline through here. Never. There won't be a pipeline.
Looking at the forecast, and it's going to be a fairly pretty day well into afternoon until a 20% chance of invasion in the north and south will arise. 2 submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Up first, the Covenant forces of Booty Clapital assault the Syndicate forces of Primordius Virtue for control of the onsen hot springs of the resort destination of Ebonscale. As the forces of Booty Clapital continue to seek a capital, they make their first regional attempt on Ebonscale. For Primordius, they make their first defense of the medicinal hot springs after enjoying their refreshing effects. They're sure to be ready. In the nightcap, the Marauders of the Resurgent assail the Covenant forces of Hex 2.0 for control of First Light and the flow of the spice. The Resurgent return to the southern peninsula, apparently committed to the ocean beach lifestyle. Hex 2.0 have only just begun their reign as sitting Spice Lords, and are still cleaning up the mess left behind by the Blob. Will they be ready to defend tonight? Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the Marauders of the Resurgent claim First Light and reclaim the title of Great House. And in Ebonscale, it has finally happened as the forces of Booty Clapital finally find a capital. We caught up with the co-leaders of Booty Clapital to talk to them about the fight.
We feel pretty, excited about it. We've been trying for a while to finally pull through and get a W, and we came out to play tonight, and we definitely got the W.
Yes, from the beginning to the end, we fought as a unit. No man left behind. Tell you that. That's our motto.
No man left behind, that's for sure.
Yo, shout out to Huang Zhang.
Yeah, also Adlim as well, for not being as washed as I thought. Galadice, yes, and Galadice. Galadice is pretty god tier. And honestly, everyone who actually came out and helped us, Zayas is a monster on point, Bubbly is obviously a monster as well. Everyone came out to play for us, and it was a fun war. It was fun the entire time.
Booty Clapital leadership then showed me their plans to develop a new waterslide feature attraction using the Grand Spring Falls. KOTT will bring you more on this story as it develops. KOTT news crews then traveled to First Light and spoke with the newly anointed governor about the fight and their intentions for the hamlet.
It went pretty well. A little better than we expected in the pre-fort phase, and then a little slower than we had hoped in the fort phase. But, we got it down and we got it done. It was a good war. Both teams fought hard. They had a couple of really solid wipes on us. We had a few more solid wipes on them, and ended up with a win. So it was a good time. We had a good time. I hope they had a good time too. So
I'm sure they had fun, except for the part that sucks, you know.
I mean, if we clap your cheeks in war, it's all, in good fun. We're not trying to be assholes. So, we're here to have a good time. Hope you are too.
Looking at the weather, and it's going to be a wonderful morning all day long, well into early evening, until a moderate hurricane will make ground and drive corrupted forces into the central corridor. 2 roster submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Up first, the Marauders of the Resurgent assault the Covenant forces of Off Constantly for Crown and Kingdom of the Western Bluff. As the newly anointed Great House of First Light, the Resurgent find themselves on the bluff, hoping to defeat Off Constantly and expand their kingdom. But now that they've had a week to rest up for tonight, can anyone beat the forces of Off Constantly? In the nightcap, the Marauders of Grim Heathens attack the Covenant forces of Lost Templar for the primary oil reserves of Weaver's Fen. The Grim Heathens slog into the peat moss fields of the Fen and attempt to prevent construction of the Weaver Fen pipeline. Thwarted on their direct line plan through the central corridor, the oil barons of the Fen are in no mood to deal with antagonists. We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the forces of the Resurgent dig deep and find a way to beat the forces of Off Constantly. We caught up with Resurgent leadership after the fight, who discussed how the flow of battle favored them.
Yeah, great shot calling, great coordination. Things just kind of worked out the right way. As usual, I guess it really is just the forward. We always kind of get botched up with it, but I guess it just kind of happens. You see the right moment, people just kind of let it fly.
KOTT then traveled to Weaver's Fen and caught up with Lost Templar, who were celebrating their send-off victory for one of their service members.
It was definitely a fun send-off. I appreciate all this warm welcomes, and I'm excited to come back in a few months. So, got a lot of people, some war experience, and I think it was just a perfect way to kind of wrap up a new chapter. In my absence, there's going to be a whole lot less bis being rolled, so there's some big shoes to be filled.
KOTT News Crews would like to wish girthy opponent an uneventful deployment and look forward to their return. Turning to the weather, and it's going to be a beautiful morning all day long again until, you guessed it, a northern cold front will drive invasions into the border territories along the Death Wall. 2 Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's Up first, the Marauders of Nameless Corgi assail the Syndicate forces of Searing Void for control of the secondary oil reserves of Cutlass Keys. The Marauders of Nameless Corgi attempt to expand their empire by conquering their neighbor and claiming their oil. But the forces of Searing Void have a lot of funding wrapped up in the research and development of the pipeline. They can't afford to lose. Then, the Syndicate forces of We Bang Anime Chicks assault the Covenant forces of Ancient Templar for control of the bear-infested forests of Brightwood. As the spring season wraps up and the summer approaches, the anime binge watchers are in between sessions and start a war to keep busy. For Ancient Templar, maintaining the Northern Territory to allow for pipeline development is a key infrastructure hold. They're sure to come out fighting. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as the forces of Searing Void keep Marauders at bay for another day in Cutlass Keys. And the forces of Ancient Templar retain control of the bear-infested deep forests of Brightwood. Dynamic change in the nightlife of Eternum, however, as the new arena venue held its grand opening last night. KOTT News crews participated in the ceremonial Celebrity Pro-Am that marked the event's grand reveal. All citizens participating in the games will receive a unique PvP currency that can be exchanged for rewards accessible through the character tab. Turning to the weather, and it looks like it's going to be a perfect day to go try out the arena with sunshine all day long and only a 10% chance of invasion late. Only one simulated fantasy combat resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Tonight, the Marauders of Anvil assail the Syndicate forces of Here Be Mutineers in their attempt to take control of the always restless shore. The Marauders of Anvil make their second attempt to secure land on the island after being turned away on Monarch's Bluff 2 weeks ago. Here Be Mutineers have had a relatively quiet experience since taking the region, but tonight they'll have to contend with the anarchy of the archipelago. We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as the forces of Here Be Mutineers retained control of the always contentious Restless Shore. In other news, a tentative peace agreement between the factions last night in Great Cleave's Eastburn Outpost as multiple faction representatives agreed to a ceasefire in efforts to maximize their collection of salt. However, tensions are high after 8 months of fighting and skirmishes are still breaking out along the roads. Putting aside the on-the-nose nature of the currency's naming convention, we spoke with an advocate for peace.
Sometimes, people turn on people. We're all trying to make this a peace area. And, that's the unfortunate thing is sometimes just peace doesn't happen.
As if on cue, a fight broke out between Hex 2.0 and Weeptile TTV as KOTT news crews were egressing the area. KOTT would like to thank Governor Weeptile for personally seeing to our safety during our coverage of the event. Back in Monarch's Bluff, a USO event was being presented in the Fountain Square Park. The show put on by Bob Ross and the backup dancers made for a relaxing decompression from all the conflict. Checking in on the forecast for tomorrow, and it's looking like another beautiful morning again all day long until a 20% chance of invasion arises in the evening in Brightwood and Cutlass Keys. 5 lineup submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Up first, the Syndicate forces of Here Be Monsters assault the Zealots of Booty Clapital for control of the Bamboo Forest Preserves and Medicinal Hot Springs of Ebonscale. Here Be Monsters make their second attempt to capture the hot springs after failing against the forces of Hammer 2 weeks ago. And since a different Covenant faction now controls the hamlet, this will mark the first time the forces of Booty Clapital will defend their capital. Then, the Covenant forces of Green Smells Really Bad assail the Marauders of the Resurgent for control of First Light and the flow of the spice. The newcomers of Green Smells Really Bad make their move against the merchants in their bid to become the ruling Spice Lords. Resurgent leadership have continued the ongoing repairs to the hamlet following the giant spice blob incident last week, and are now capable of preparing for war. Meanwhile, the Covenant forces of Lost Templar challenge the Marauders of Hooded X Outcasts for their championship title and the right to rule over Everfall. Lost Templar returned to the ring after their defeat to the champs 2 weeks ago, making this their third attempt to take the belt. For Hooded X Outcasts, a victory tonight will bring their Neverfall total to 9, moving them to within striking distance of second place on the all-time Neverfall list, currently held by Elysian, with 10. In the nightcap, the Syndicate forces of Perplexuals snatch and grab the Marauders of Hooded X Outcasts, attempting to steal the financial capital of Windsward. The forces of Perplexuals seek to expand their empire by enriching their wallets and financing their future ambitions. The forces of Hooded X Outcasts will need to overcome the fatigue of fighting in back-to-back wars. They've done it before, we'll see if they can do it again. In the late matchup, the Syndicate forces of Nyancat attack the Marauders of Nameless Corgi for control of the master fishing port town of Reekwater. The newcomers of Nyancat arrive on the scene, riding their rainbow And of course, they're sniffing around the fish markets. Nameless Corgi have seen the rainbow and come barking at the cats, chasing them out to the fort, where the first official cat and dog fight of the island will take place. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night, as all 5 great houses managed to hold the line and retain their respective regions. Of note in Everfall, the champs extend their current Neverfall streak to 9. Fighting back-to-back in Windsward, we caught up with the champs there and got their reactions for the evening. 2 points down with 19 minutes remaining, but you dig deep and hold Bravo for the duration. How'd it feel out there to you?
I was pretty confident in our 50v50 against them. I didn't feel like we were going to lose the last flag, but overall, good war.
Excellent. Is there anybody's efforts who you'd like to note out there? I couldn't help but notice that one of your representatives got nearly 5 million heals.
I'm going to butcher it, but it was like Huan Jinjun or something.
God tier hailing, God tier.
It was insane.
Well, I've already heard word from other representatives of the group saying that there will be no pipeline. Would you care to elaborate on that?
The pipeline, not happening. That's where we're going to hold this forever, and there's going to be no pipeline.
Forever.
While in Windsward, KOTT news crews were also able to secure interviews from optimistic members of the defeated offensive forces.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed my time out there. It was great practice. I think we'll get them next time. I think it was pretty close. Just need a little more team synergy, and we're still testing out the bows, so wars will be a little wish-washy for these next couple of days. Still trying to figure out the meta and see how the game works. We'll get it, though, eventually.
War tonight, it was a battle out there, not gonna lie. A lot of back and forth. I felt like we gave it our all. We're gonna reevaluate the footage and go over our strategy, and we're gonna come back with a better strategy next time. Perplexuals will not stop.
It's that infectious positive demeanor that keeps me and the sun coming back every morning to the promise of another beautiful day in Eternum, until a 20% chance of invasion will arise in Everfall and Restless Shore late. 2 more submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPCO. Remember, if it isn't LARPCO, it's cardboard. Up first, the syndicate forces of We Bang Anime Chicks assault the marauders of the Resurgent for crowning kingdom of the Monarch's Bluff. The anime binge-watching girls of We Bang Anime Chicks have just finished the Greed Island arc for the 15th time, and they're looking for a game of dodgeball. The marauders of the Resurgent make their first defense of their crown and have hunkered into their castle high on the western bluff. In the nightcap, the marauders of Nameless Corgi assault the syndicate forces of Perplexuals for control of the northernmost region of Morningdale. Fresh off their hold in Reekwater last night, Nameless Corgi strive to claim the fresher rainwaters of Morningdale. Perplexuals were busy last night as well, and as noted earlier in the report, they're exuberantly enthusiastic about their upcoming battles. We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night, as Resurgent forces retained their crown and maintain rule over Monarch's Bluff. And the syndicate forces of Perplexuals managed to hold the fort the entire second half, retaining their water retention rights. KOTT News were on the scene in the first matchup and caught up with a Resurgent senior officer to discuss the outcome.
It was a good war. They made some decent rotations. They eventually took C from us, but we barely held back and held that B at the last minute there. So we kept them outside of the fort this time. In the end, we took home the W.
Oh, excellent. Well, congratulations to you. Is there anybody whose performance out there you'd like to highlight?
Well, the guys in my group, Rousey, he kicked some serious booty. Him and Vusi Vu, along with my other bruiser, Nahoku. Fly Ryoga was helping keep me up, so, me and him were doing the heels.
Utilizing an unusual free mass transit weekend pass, KOTT News were able to get to Morningdale quickly, where we spoke with the mercenarial participant about their victory.
Oh man, John, I really think we did a really good job. The point play has been a little hairy for us recently, We tried to hold those points as long as we could. Took it down into the floor with about 18 minutes left, and it was an all-out brawl. I'll say, shout out to the guys on the left gate with me. We held that shit down. We prospered. It was a really hard-fought war. They put up a really good fight, and I'm excited for the upcoming wars, man.
Yes, it was extremely close tonight. Is there anyone whose efforts you would like to highlight out there?
Yeah, man. I mean, on our defending side, my healer Nemo. Finding Nemo, he's an awesome dude. That man's kept me alive in some really tough situations, and especially Pixelbay, our shot caller for that war, he did amazing. And even on the attacker side, Pleberry and Kylam, those guys were destroying healers. Nars bars, those guys are just tearing it up and being an absolute nuisance. They're great players,
Looking at the one-day Doppler weather forecast, and it's looking like the sun is going to barely poke through the clouds today. Just kidding. It's amazing again. Until late evening cold fronts will push invasions in from the north, driving as far south as Reekwater. Only one simulated fantasy combat resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. In the Monday Night Mall, the Syndicate forces of Primordius Virtue attack the Covenant forces of Ancient Templar for control of the bear-infested deep forests of Brightwood. Primordius return to their homeland with writ of purchase in hand, demanding the release of its citizens, their housing, and the hamlet. After delaying their pipeline project pending further negotiations, Ancient Templar forces now need to retain the land until those talks are done. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News.